So here's the situation. We are at 5 kilometers with 46% battery left. Should make it back, right?
A few moments later.
Critically low battery. Please go home as soon as possible. The aircraft is landing.
So that was a bit of a disaster. Critically low battery.
Don't die on me! Don't die, brother!
Those are 3 words that a DJI drone pilot dreads to hear. Hi, my name is Jeremy and this is the new Mini 3 Pro, and many people have said that this is easily one of the best compact drones that DJI has released in years. And if you have decided to pick one up yourself, you'll eventually also have to decide on which one of these controllers to get. For $760, should you get the Mini 3 Pro with the RC-N1, or should you splurge and pay $910, which is an extra $150, and get the Mini 3 Pro with the DJI-RC, which is the latest DJI controller that also comes with a display built into it? Well, in today's episode, we're going to help you break down the differences between these two controllers. We're also going to be seeing how far each of these controllers can take the Mini 3 Pro using the standard and the Plus battery. And yes, there were a couple of times that our Mini 3 Pro almost didn't quite make it back. But hopefully by the end of this video, you would have learned which one of these controllers best suits your needs. So let's get into it. This is the RC-N1 controller, and it has been the standard controller for the Mavic lineup since the Mavic Air 2, Mini 2, Air 2S, and Mavic 3. And now you can use this controller on the Mini 3 Pro, which means if you already own an RC-N1, you could actually go ahead and purchase the Mini 3 Pro with no controllers. And that way, you'll be saving yourself $90. And you can pair up your new Mini 3 Pro with your existing controller. Now, the same thing can be said with the DJI-RC because this controller is only compatible with the Mavic 3 and Mini 3 Pro. So, if you were thinking that you could pair this up with your Air 2S or Mini 2, unfortunately, the DJI-RC is not compatible yet. Now, what the DJI-RC lacks in compatibility, it makes up for by having this display built into it, and having this 5.5-inch display automatically fire up without having to attach a smartphone onto a controller makes the drone setup experience such a pleasure. I really love how quickly you can set up this controller. All you have to do is pull out the control sticks from the back and then stick them back onto the front, and boom, that's it. Once the Mini 3 has connected to the GPS network, you are off. No more messing about with wires and attaching the smartphone onto the controller. And I do think that this should be the standard controller from now on. Now, the display on the DJI-RC can only emit up to 700 nits of brightness, so the display isn't as bright as the display on its older and more expensive brother, the RC Pro controller, which can emit up to 1000 nits of brightness, which is like really bright. But did you know the RC Pro controller will cost you $1,200? What? Now, with the RC-N1, you'll have to supply your own display, and if you happen to have an iPhone 13 Pro or Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra, then your display could be just as bright as the $1,200 RC Pro controller. However, if your smartphone starts to detect that its battery is about to overheat, which it normally does when you're holding it right under a hot sun because you're getting the heat from the sun and the battery, then your smartphone will override the manual brightness and tone down the display. And if that's the case, your BYO display may just turn out to be just as bright as the DJI-RC. However, if you really want a controller that can sustain 1000 nits of brightness throughout your entire flight, unfortunately, the RC Pro controller is the only option out there. And just be aware that the RC Pro controller is only compatible with the Mavic 3, Air 2S, and as of recently, the Mini 3 Pro as well. So, if you want to learn more about this controller, check out our comparison video in the link above. Now, there are benefits to using your smartphone as the display, and that is your RC-N1 controller will always have internet connectivity. provided that you're within a cell phone coverage area. And that way, you get to fly with the latest maps available on the DJI Fly app, because the app will just download them from the network as you need it. Now, don't get me wrong, you do get maps on the DJI-RC even when you're not connected to the internet. You just won't be able to zoom in for more information. However, you can always connect your DJI-RC to your Wi-Fi at home the night before and cache the map into your controller, provided you know where you're going to be flying the next day. Now, when it comes to flying and shooting cinematic footages with these two controllers, the DJI-RC to me is the better controller. Let me explain. Reason number one is weight. The DJI-RC weighs 385 grams, while the RC-N1 with an iPhone 13 Pro attached to it weighs over 600 grams, which is heavier than an Air 2S. And this means that the DJI-RC is a much lighter controller to hold, making it easier for you to operate for long periods of time. The second reason is this. This left dial here on the RC-N1 controls the gimbal, which tilts the camera up and down. And if you want to use the zoom, you'll have to hold down this function button here, and then the left down now becomes the control for the zoom function. Now, what happens if you want to use the zoom function and the gimbal function at the same time? Well, that all becomes a bit tricky. Which is why I prefer the DJI-RC. Here, you can control the gimbal and the zoom simultaneously with your index finger, while your thumbs hover permanently over the control sticks, allowing you to maintain full control over the camera and the drone. Another function that I use quite often comes from the back of the DJI-RC, and these are the C1 and C2 buttons, which you don't get on the RC-N1. I usually set the C1 button to point the gimbal downwards, which I use quite often for shooting overhead shots. And sometimes, during an emergency, I use it to quickly scout for a safe spot to land.
Landing. The aircraft is landing.
Now, as to which one of these controllers can go the furthest on a standard battery and still return home safely, well, you saw earlier in this video, the DJI-RC flew the Mini 3 Pro as far as 5.2 kilometers. The transmission started to glitch in and out around the 5 kilometer mark, and then after a little bit further, the battery warning came on, asking the drone to turn back.
No signal. Battery level is low. Go home.
Now, I think 5 kilometers would have been the optimal point to turn back, because the Mini 3 Pro ran out of juice 37 meters out, and it landed in the middle of the field. And because it had been raining the night before, retrieving the Mini 3 Pro became a very dirty job. Oh, I can hear it. I can hear it. Oh God. There you are. Quite miraculously, we had somehow managed to land the Mini 3 Pro safely on top of a tiny patch of grass, missing all the puddles, the mud, and the cow feces in the field. Had the Mini 3 Pro tipped into the puddle? Well, that would have been the end of this video. Now, from experience learned from losing a lot of drones on this channel, we know that the DJI Fly app is incredibly accurate in calculating how much battery you have left, and it knows the optimal point of return based on your current distance. And as such, we have learned to always trust the app whenever it tells us to turn back. Because when we don't, this is usually what happens.
Battery level is low. Out of control. No signal. The aircraft is landing. Critically low battery. No signal.
Now, getting back to our second test, we took the Mini 3 Pro up on a standard battery with the RC-N1, and it managed to get the Mini 3 Pro up to 5.6 kilometers before the DJI Fly app told us to turn home.
Go home.
Unfortunately, this time, the app miscalculated again. And this time, we were short by 300 meters.
Critically low battery.
Jesus Christ. It's a lot of mud. Oh my goodness, is there? Oh. Okay. Undamaged.
Now at this point, I was a bit tired from walking through the mud and cow feces every time to rescue the Mini 3. You could even go as far as to say I was developing a little PTSD from wading into the field. So at this point, I think we can comfortably conclude that on a standard battery, which is this one here, the one that has the markings 249 grams on it, which is a 2450 mAh battery, this battery will take the Mini 3 Pro as far as 5 kilometers. And both the DJI-RC and the RC-N1 will have no difficulties taking you out this far. However, if you did order your Mini 3 Pro with the Plus battery, which is this one here, there are no markings on this battery, and yes, it will make your Mini 3 Pro weigh more than 250 grams. But your Mini 3 Pro will be flying with a battery that has more capacity. This is a 3850 mAh battery, which has 57% capacity more than the standard battery. And how far did we manage to fly with this battery? Let's find out. Well, we flew with the RC-N1 controller first because it was still connected to the Mini 3. But after suffering a total loss of confidence with the DJI Fly app for miscalculating our trip twice, we were super cautious on this flight because I didn't want to rescue the Mini 3 again.
That's another cow feces!
So, when the transmission started to glitch in and out around the 5.8 kilometer mark and the battery indicator showing 77%, I got worried and I decided to initiate return to home.
Go home.
But when it returned with 40% battery left, I knew that this battery could have gone even further. So after swapping controllers, this time on the DJI-RC, I finally decided to be brave, put on my big boy pants, and we went out for another run. And this time we got as far as 8.5 kilometers before the battery warning came on. And the signal strength was still pretty decent, which is really impressive for a tiny little drone like the Mini 3 Pro.
Battery level is low. Go home.
And when it got back, it had 12% battery left. No need to put on my boots this time. How amazing is that? So to recap, on the standard battery, both the DJI-RC and the RC-N1 can do around 5 kilometers and still expect the Mini 3 Pro to return with sufficient battery. Any further and you've seen what happened. At the 5 kilometer mark, both controllers suffered some kind of interference, albeit the RC-N1 went a little bit further before experiencing that drop in signal. However, when we flew the RC-N1 with the Plus battery, it too experienced a similar drop in signal around this area, and so did the DJI-RC with the Plus battery. But once it's over the 7 kilometer mark, the signal remained strong, which is kind of weird and we can't seem to explain it. Comment down below if you know what's going on. Now, while I did chicken out on the RC-N1 with the Plus battery, we have flown this controller to over 9 kilometers on the Mavic 3. So it is quite likely that the RC-N1 would have taken the Mini 3 Pro with the Plus battery to over 8 kilometers. So what does this all mean? Well, it means that if you're deciding on which controller to get based on range performance, where you're expecting your drone to come back, which is how normal people fly their drones, both these controllers will get you very similar results. If you're on a standard battery, you should get around 5 kilometers and 8 kilometers and possibly more if you're on the Plus battery. Just don't forget to bring your boots. Now, if you're wondering which controller is easier to set up and has the better user interface, well, that will be the DJI-RC because it has a built-in display. It is light, it has separate dials for controlling the zoom and the gimbal. And if you're going to pick one up, get it as a combo with the Mini 3 Pro. It'll be cheaper than buying it outright. However, the DJI-RC's compatibility is rather limited. Currently, it's only compatible with the Mavic 3 and Mini 3 Pro, but hopefully, DJI will expand its compatibility in the near future. Now, if you already have a collection of DJI drones, and this might mean that you already own an RC-N1, and if you're okay with not having a display built into your controller, just get the Mini 3 Pro with no controllers. That way you'll be saving yourself $90 and you'll be reducing the number of controllers you'll have to lug around every time you go out for a shoot, because the RC-N1 is the one controller to rule them all.
One ring to rule them all.
So, we hope this video has been helpful, and if it has, please don't forget to leave us a thumbs up, and please do consider subscribing so you can stay tuned for more videos like this. Our friend Air Photography did a similar test in Canada. Check it out here to see how it went down. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Bye!